It was a cold, moonless night as I stepped off the bus and into the dimly lit parking lot of Eastwood Airport. The abandoned terminal loomed before me, its windows shattered and covered in an eerie layer of dust. A chill ran down my spine, but I dismissed it as the wind whistling through the empty corridors. I had been drawn to this forgotten place by rumors of supernatural occurrences, but I had no idea what horrors awaited me inside. Reluctantly, I pushed open the creaking doors and entered the terminal. The air was heavy with an oppressive silence, broken only by the distant echoes of my own footsteps. The flickering lights overhead cast eerie shadows that seemed to dance with malicious intent. Every corner I turned, I felt as though unseen eyes were watching my every move. As I ventured deeper into the terminal, I noticed a sense of disarray. Abandoned luggage lay strewn across the floor, as if their owners had vanished into thin air. The departure boards displayed flights from decades ago, frozen in time. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was desperately wrong here. Suddenly, a shrill scream pierced through the silence, echoing through the desolate halls. I spun around, my heart pounding in my chest. The scream seemed to come from all directions, as if the very walls were crying out in agony. Panic gripped me as I desperately searched for the source, but there was no one in sight. The walls whispered and sighed, as if alive with malevolent energy. Unable to bear the terror any longer, I made a mad dash towards the exit, only to find myself trapped in a maze of corridors that seemed to shift and change before my eyes. The once familiar airport now felt like an endless labyrinth designed to torment and trap unsuspecting souls. As I frantically tried to find my way out, I stumbled upon a hidden room concealed behind a forgotten door. The room was adorned with cryptic symbols scrawled across the walls, and a thick layer of dust covered a lone suitcase placed at its center. With trembling hands, I opened the suitcase, revealing a collection of weathered photographs. Each photograph depicted people in moments of sheer terror and despair. Their eyes were filled with a haunting emptiness, as if their very souls had been consumed. These were the lost souls of Eastwood Airport, trapped in a never-ending nightmare. A deafening roar filled the room, shaking the very foundation of the terminal. The walls began to crumble, and darkness engulfed me. The ground gave way beneath my feet, and I found myself falling into an abyss, surrounded by the agonized screams of those who had come before me. I awoke with a start, drenched in cold sweat, realizing it had all been a terrible nightmare. But as I glanced at the newspaper by my bedside, I froze. The headline read, "Eastwood Airport reopens after decades of abandonment." The photograph accompanying the article showed an eerie resemblance to the forgotten room and the suitcase of lost souls. Trembling, I realized that Eastwood Airport's horrors had escaped the confines of my dreams and now awaited unsuspecting travelers in the waking world. I never expected that my routine business trip would turn into a nightmarish descent into terror. Boarding the plane at midnight, I settled into my seat, oblivious to the horrors that awaited me in the skies. The cabin lights dimmed, and the engines roared to life as we taxied down the runway. Little did I know that this flight would become a harrowing journey through the realm of the supernatural. As the plane soared into the night sky, an inexplicable unease settled within me. The air felt heavy, suffused with an eerie stillness that was punctuated only by the distant hum of the engines. I glanced around, hoping to find solace in the faces of my fellow passengers, but what I saw sent chills down my spine. Their expressions were vacant, devoid of life, as if their souls had been snatched away. Uneasy and desperate for distraction, I turned to the small window beside me. The darkness outside seemed impenetrable, an abyss that swallowed any trace of light. But as my eyes adjusted, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A face, distorted and twisted, pressed against the glass. Its eyes, glowing with malevolence, locked with mine in a horrifying gaze. Heart pounding, I looked away, hoping it was a figment of my imagination. But when I stole another glance, the face was gone, replaced by a swirling mist that seemed to dance in the moonlight. Panic surged through my veins as I realized I was trapped on a plane with an otherworldly presence, an entity that hungered for the souls of those aboard. As the flight progressed, the temperature plummeted, and an icy breath seemed to whisper in my ear. Shadows slithered along the cabin walls, manifesting as twisted figures that danced and writhed in the aisle. The flight attendants appeared oblivious, their smiles frozen and their movements mechanical. It was as if they were puppets, controlled by an unseen force. A voice, distorted and chilling, crackled through the intercom. It spoke of an ancient curse, a curse that bound this plane and all who dared to board it. Each flight became a macabre ritual, a feeding ground for the malevolent spirits that haunted the skies. I clutched my armrest, my mind teetering on the edge of madness as the words sank deep into my soul. Desperation consumed me, and I sought refuge in the lavatory. But there, in the cramped space, I was met with a horrifying sight. The mirror reflected not my own face, but a gaunt, tormented visage. It whispered dreadful secrets, promising an eternity of suffering and despair. The air grew suffocating, my heart pounding against my chest as I realized escape was futile. In a final act of defiance, I mustered the courage to confront the entity. With trembling hands, I unraveled the mystery behind the curse, unearthing the story of a doomed flight that had crashed years ago. The restless souls of the passengers now sought vengeance, trapping all who boarded subsequent flights in their eternal torment. With a surge of determination, I recited the incantation to break the curse, calling upon the forces of light to cleanse the plane. A blinding light filled the cabin, banishing the shadows and dispelling the malevolent presence. When the light subsided, I found myself back in my seat, the plane soaring through clear skies. Relief washed over me as I realized the nightmare was over. But the memories lingered, a haunting reminder of the horrors I had witnessed. The plane touched down, and I disembarked, grateful to leave that vessel of nightmares behind. Yet, a nagging thought remained: would those spirits ever find peace, or would they forever haunt the skies, waiting for their next unsuspecting victims? I had always been fascinated by airports, the bustling crowds, the anticipation of journeys to new destinations. But there was something different about Midhaven Airport. From the moment I stepped inside, an inexplicable sense of unease washed over me, as if unseen eyes were watching my every move. Little did I know that this airport held a sinister secret, one that would plunge me into a terrifying ordeal beyond imagination. Late one stormy night, I found myself stranded at Midhaven Airport due to a cancelled flight. The terminal was eerily empty, devoid of any signs of life. The air hung heavy with an oppressive stillness, broken only by the distant rumble of thunder. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being drawn deeper into a labyrinth of darkness. As I made my way through the deserted corridors, the flickering lights overhead cast eerie shadows on the worn-out walls. Whispers echoed in the air, faint and distorted, as if carried on a chilling breeze. I couldn't discern the words, but their presence sent shivers down my spine. The very atmosphere seemed to vibrate with a malevolent energy. The departure boards displayed outdated flights, frozen in time, mocking the passage of years. Something about their stagnant information filled me with a sense of dread. I felt like a trapped soul caught in a perpetual loop, unable to escape the confines of this spectral airport. Every step I took felt heavier, as if the very ground beneath me was pulling me further into the abyss. Suddenly, a disembodied voice crackled over the intercom, its tone laced with malice. It spoke of a long-forgotten tragedy, of a plane that had vanished without a trace, leaving behind a restless spirit. I clutched my ears, trying to block out the haunting voice, but its words seeped into my mind, filling me with a suffocating terror. I sought refuge in an abandoned lounge, hoping for a moment of respite. But the darkness that engulfed the room was thick and suffocating. Shadows danced along the walls, taking twisted forms that seemed to mock my very presence. The air grew colder, and a bone-chilling breath grazed the back of my neck, sending icy tendrils down my spine. Determined to escape, I ran towards the exit, only to find the once-open doors sealed shut. Panic seized me as I realized that the airport itself had become a sentient entity, toying with me, reveling in my fear. I pounded on the doors, screaming for help, but my cries were swallowed by the void, unheard by any living soul. Exhausted and defeated, I sank to the floor, feeling the weight of despair bear down upon me. But in the depths of my darkest moment, a faint glimmer of hope ignited within me. With every ounce of courage, I summoned the strength to confront the malevolence that plagued this accursed place. Armed with resolve, I retraced my steps, venturing deeper into the heart of the airport's twisted corridors. I sought the source of its power, determined to sever the ties that bound it to this realm. Through labyrinthine paths, I navigated the shadows, evading the apparitions that materialized along the way. Finally, I found myself standing in a long-forgotten control room. The air crackled with an electrifying energy. As I gazed upon the old radio equipment, I realized its power. Through the frequencies of the past, I could communicate with the entity haunting Midhaven Airport. With trembling hands, I grasped the microphone and spoke words of liberation. I conjured images of peace, of releasing the tormented souls trapped within this terminal. In the moment that followed, a deafening roar shook the very foundation of the airport. The walls quivered, and the shadows dissipated into thin air. An overwhelming light enveloped the terminal, cleansing it of its malevolent presence. As the light subsided, I found myself outside the airport, the storm clouds dispersing overhead. The once dreaded Midhaven Airport stood before me, now transformed into a place of tranquility and redemption. I let out a sigh of relief, knowing that I had broken the grip of darkness that had held it captive. Word spread of the airport's miraculous transformation, drawing travelers back to its gates. The terminal, once shunned, now thrived with life and hope. But I, forever marked by the horrors I had witnessed, could not forget the chilling reality that lurked beneath its renewed facade. Midhaven Airport serves as a reminder that even within the most ordinary places, a sinister presence may lie dormant, awaiting its moment to strike. As the planes take off and land, passengers unknowingly pass through the veil that separates our world from the realm of shadows. It is a testament that some secrets are best left buried, lost to time and forgotten. But for those who dare to delve into the unknown, they may find themselves entangled in a nightmare from which escape is a mere illusion.